Guys, this is going to be a good talk. And the reason it's going to be a good talk is because I've probably had, personally, the most experience with it. And this is the lies that we tell ourselves. These can be beliefs, they can be thoughts, they can be actions that have happened to us. They can be so many different things, but they have literally shaped who we are today. If I was to classify this in another word, I would call these limiting beliefs. And some of you have heard of limiting beliefs before, but a limiting belief is something that we've created in our head that's really holding us back in some way. And a limiting belief can be a permission, it can be a responsibility, it can be our rights, or something that we just create in our head, right? They can be so many different things. And limiting beliefs typically involve saying things to yourself like, I can or I can't, I should or I shouldn't, I am or I am not, things like that. And one of my favorites is, that's just how the world works, or it is what it is. Like that, God, it just drives me crazy. That drives me crazy because, let me give you an example. It is what it is. A perfect example of that would be that all men cheat, or all the women are bad drivers. But we all know the truth, and that's not true, right? Like these are just beliefs and stories that we've made up in our head. There are four main ways that we're limiting ourselves right now. We're limiting ourselves by experiences, we're limiting ourselves by fears, we're limiting ourselves by actions or inactions, but also just like by bad advice. And so let's talk about the first one with experiences and how it relates to health. Like for example, in your health, I tried dieting in the past, but it didn't work. And so we've created this belief in our head that if we diet, that we'll never find success because in the past it hasn't worked. Okay, so that's a way that we limit ourselves by experience. Now, if you want to take that a level deeper, which we could definitely do, is a lot of times that these limiting beliefs that we've created in our minds stem from some childhood trauma. Now, let me give an example. I'm just throwing this out there. When I was a kid, this is not true by the way, when I was a kid, my dad beat me. And now I have a hard time trusting men because of what happened when I was a kid. And so the belief that we've created is that I cannot love, I cannot trust, because all men will hurt me. Okay? So a lot of these limiting beliefs go back to when we were kids. Now, the next one is fear. And we have fears about like 1,000 different things, but let's just talk about a few ways that we fear. We fear out of failure. We fear out of success even. We fear out of looking bad. We fear out of just getting started. A lot of times when we fear failure, the underlying reason that we fear failure is from a concept of a lack of self-worth. Because if we fear failing at something, what that is really saying is that we're unworthy of the result, of the positive result that could happen. And so instead, we make up the reasons why it wouldn't, like all of the 1,000 reasons why we wouldn't. And we have this thing that I call the committee. And the committee is like that negative voice that's just always in the back of your head. Like if you're looking over a bridge and it's summertime and you're on the lake with your friends and you look over and you're like, man, I should jump, it looks so much fun, everybody's doing it. But you've got the committee going off. And the committee's like, man, if you jump, there's sharks down there. I don't know about that. You might land on a rock even though it's like 40 feet deep. What if you slip and hit your head? You know what I mean? Like the committee just goes off. My committee's a bunch of assholes. And even the most positive and successful people have the committee as well. Everybody has the committee. We all do. Can you get rid of the committee? I don't know. I don't know if you can get rid of them. But because we have a choice, we can shift away from the committee. So, yeah. Another way that we limit ourselves is through excuses. And the excuses are nasty. Like, I see this all the time where, like, I'll be talking to somebody about their health or their fitness goals, and they'll be like, well, you know, in the past I've done it this way, but I haven't got any results. Okay, so this is what you should try instead. And so I'll give them XYZ, and they'll be like, yeah, I don't know about that because I just don't have enough time to prep my food, or I don't have time to work out because I have a busy schedule, or they just start rattling off excuse after excuse after excuse. And the committee's back there like in that movie Ratatouille where like little rats on his head and he's like directing the guy where to go to cook all the food. Your committee is directing you where to go and what to say and how to act and how to react. The committee's an asshole. And so, along with excuses comes the other part of this where we like to point the finger. We like to point the finger at everybody else as the reason why we don't have what we want. And then another way that we limit ourselves is by just simply getting bad advice. I mean, especially in fitness, like everybody's got their own way of doing something, right? And now it's like there's so much information available to us that it's like, what the hell do I believe? Dan's telling me to eat lower carbs if I want to lose weight. Fitness Pal is telling me that I should have 6,000 grams of carbs a day. Who do I believe? Well, all of those limiting beliefs, all of the things that you're telling yourself, all of that shit are just beliefs, okay? They are so far from the real truth of who you really are, the authentic you. Okay? And based off of the comments that I got, I want to talk about the most common themes that I was seeing in those comments and some of the stuff that I had to read in between the lines to really get. But we're going to talk about most of this. The first one is fear. Okay, let's just talk about fear for a minute. And, you know, I learned a long time ago about, and this is going to sound crazy. I learned a long time ago about this one time in like the 15th through like the 16th or 17th century. This was in Europe, and there was this like crazy psychiatric disorder where, this is even funny to talk about. There was this psychiatric disorder where a lot of Europeans were thinking that they were made of glass. I know, it sounds crazy, but it was called the glass delusion. And you can look this up. I'm not making this up at all. And so for like a 200-year period or so, people thought that they were made out of glass. And so because of that, they really started to limit what they did, what they thought, how they acted, what they actually went out into the world and do, because they thought that if they interacted with one another, if they had human contact with one another, that they would just shatter into a million pieces. And although like this glass delusion has to do with physical contact and shattering, you know, what it translates into nowadays with us is that our emotions are that sensitive. And we create these stories that could potentially allow for the same result. And so it's interesting that even back then, 200, 300, 400 years ago, people were still struggling with the same committee, the same beliefs. The committee's always talking, I can't do this because of that. I can't do X because of Y, whatever. Here's the big thing about the committee though, okay? When the committee comes up and they're saying you probably shouldn't do this because of this, that's when you need to take action most. So write that down, that when my committee starts going off, do the opposite of what they do. Let's look at Elton John. Let's look at Oprah, okay? I've been following both of them for a long time now. And think about if Elton John had listened to the committee and everybody else around him in their committee when they were telling him that he's gay, that he's this, that he's that he'll never succeed because he's gay. But look what he ended up doing. Look how successful and look how much contribution he was able to give to the world because he didn't believe that, because he didn't listen to the committee, because he didn't listen to everybody else around him. What would the world be like without somebody like Elton John? Let's look at Oprah. I mean, how many times have we heard that Oprah's a black racist and that she's just a corporate consumer, you know, like all she's in it for is the money. She doesn't care about people. What if she would have listened to all of that? Would she be in the same place that she is today? One of the most wealthy, influential, and inspiring people on the planet? Probably not. The committee and what you hear from the people around you doesn't matter. Because a lot of us have a really, really high fear of judgment. Myself included. I had it for years. A long time. Like since the 6th grade. I remember when I was in the 6th grade, I was like this really skinny, freckle-faced kid. And I lived in a bad neighborhood. You know, there was a lot of Mexican gangs in my area. And I'm the light-skinned dude with freckles. And you can imagine the kind of shit that I experienced. Like, I remember I had to walk to the end of my block to get picked up by the bus for school. And I lived on the other side of the block. And so I had to pass all of these houses every morning to get to the bus in this Mexican gang neighborhood. And every house that I passed was somebody that I was just praying that I didn't see. Because everybody would either say something or try to fight me. And like, you know, I didn't, at this time, I didn't have a role model. Like, I didn't have my dad around. And so it was tough for me to be able to stand up for myself because I didn't know how. And so I would pass each one of these houses and I would just pray that I didn't run into anybody. And I remember up the block from my house, the last house that I had to pass before my bus was these two Mexican guys named Lorenzo and Junior. And they were always outside waiting for me. And sometimes I would literally go all the way around the block to avoid them because I was afraid of them. It was crazy. The other type of failure that I was noticing in these common themes between everybody was the fear of even getting started. Like why should I even begin? You know? Why should I even get started getting my ideal life back? Why should I even get started trying to get my ideal body? Because I'm just going to fail anyways. I've done it 1,000 times and haven't had any kind of success with it. So I just want to share my story with you again for those that haven't heard it before. There was a time where I lost somebody really important in my life. Really important in my life. This man was like the main father figure in my life. My mentor, my coach, my best friend. And he died unexpectedly. I walked in and found him. It was a terrible situation. And as a result of that, my life just went straight downhill quick. Like, I gained 30 pounds. I racked up $40K in credit card debt. I literally lost all control of my body, my emotions, my thoughts, and my life. And I remember vividly being in the parking lot of a local sports store up here with a gun to my head and not caring about the outcome. Like, shit got deep for me for a long time. And, you know, I think about all of that negative that had happened. And at that point, it was like, there was no way that I was going to be able to pull myself out of it and function on a normal level again and be able to carry on in my life. And so I thought, why even be around? And then I got a call one day. I got a call a week after I had the gun to my head. And it was a friend of mine. His name was Ryan Coughlin. And Ryan's like, dude, you know, I don't know if you're working with clients right now, but I know a guy who wants to start working with a trainer. And he said, do you want it? And at that time, like, my heart's racing 100 miles an hour, and I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say, and then something in my heart in that moment just said, just go for it. And so I'm like, yep, sign me up, I'm the guy. Yep, I want him. And it was like, in that moment, I decided to shift away from living this lifestyle that was going nowhere, and just taking that leap of faith, remember, not fear, faith. Because fear is the thought that the outcome is going to be negative and disastrous, but the belief in faith is that the outcome is going to be beautiful and wonderful. And so I took that leap of faith into something that I had no idea how I was going to figure it out. I just knew that I had to figure it out somehow. And so I said, yeah, sign me up, I'm the guy for the job. And this was 3 years ago. And had I not taken that leap of faith, who knows where I would have been. But I did, and look where I'm at now. Speaking to you, sharing my story, helping you get on the right path. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to impress you with anything. I'm just saying this because a lot of us fear just getting started because we fear of what's happened in the past and how we haven't succeeded. And I want you to know that regardless of where you've been, that doesn't determine where you can go. And this is one that I struggled. This is probably the biggest one that I struggled with. And that's the feeling that I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy of living my ideal life. I'm not worthy of happiness. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of this or that or whatever. I'm not worth it. And so going back to my personal life, because this is something I've experienced, and so I'm just going to share with you, is when I was 13, my parents divorced. Kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I knew they weren't getting along, but all of a sudden one day my dad wasn't there. And I had learned that he had moved away. And it crushed me because, you know, at that time, I'm 13. It was like the most pivotal time in my life to have a male figure in my life, a role model, a father. And so in my head, like, I was crushed. I felt unloved. I felt unwanted. I felt like a failure as a son. And most importantly, I felt like if my own dad didn't want to be around me, then I must just be a worthless piece of crap. I mean, I know it sounds silly to think about it now, but at that time, as a kid, that's how I thought. Lacking self-worth, like, really led me to holding back in my relationships. Because my dad left, then that must mean everybody leaves. And so for a long, long time, I held back in my relationships. I never really gave my full heart to the people that I was in a relationship with. And then one day, I was at this workshop. I was at a workshop, and we were talking about self-worth. And we did this exercise. It was, let me kind of like paint the scenario for you. The situation was, there's 87 people on a boat, okay? And there really was 87 people in this room. There's 87 people in this boat. The boat's sinking. Only 9 people will live. How do we figure out who is going to live, who is going to die? And so, one by one, all 87 people were given 15 seconds to state their case in front of the group as to why they should live. And some of the people that would go up there and talk, they were like, you know what? I'm going to give my life so that somebody else can live. I die. The next person would come up and be like, please let me live. I have kids. I have a family. I haven't been able to accomplish everything I want in life. And then some people were going up and saying, please let me live because this is my vision. This is what I want to accomplish. This is how I will impact the world if I'm able to live. And we have a democratic vote about it. And so we all stood in this big circle, all 87 of us, and we were given 9 sticks, like popsicle sticks. And one by one, we went to the 9 people in this circle that we thought decided to live. And at the end of everybody going around and giving their 9 sticks away to whoever they wanted to, there was a vote. And before we took the vote, we were all told to count our sticks. I counted all my sticks. And remember, there's 87 people in the room. I counted all my sticks and I'm like, wow. I only got 31 sticks. Like, I didn't even get half of the votes. There is no way that I'm getting on this boat. There's no way that I'm going to be one of the 9 people to survive because I got 31 sticks. And then as everybody started to this is choking me out. As they started to give me a second. As everybody started counting their sticks, and I had 31 sticks, I had found out that out of all 87 people, that I had the most amount of sticks out of the entire group. That even though it wasn't half, I still had more than anybody else, and I was able to to be one of the 9 people that got off the boat. And it was such a powerful moment for me to realize that for the longest time that I've counted myself out before even knowing the result. Like my whole life I count myself out before even knowing what was going to happen. And it was in that moment that I realized that I count myself out before even knowing, that I shifted. That I realized that I'm worthy. That I realized that I am capable of living a happy, fulfilling, successful, incredible fucking life. And since that's happened, I've never gone back to feeling like I'm unworthy. Limiting beliefs are so powerful, and I could go on for another hour or two on this. Honestly, there's so many different beliefs, but I think out of all of these beliefs, that it comes down to one thing that we need to have more of in order to gain ground on all of the stuff that the committee is telling us. And that foundational belief that we need to have more of is love. Specifically self-love. Because the more love that we have for ourselves, the easier it is to accept what we are now and let it go to the universe and say, you know what? I love and I accept me for who I am. Now, how can I make me better? So at the foundation of all of this, guys, is self-love and having more of it. When you have a limiting belief that comes up, the best way to deal with it is to first acknowledge, like, what exactly... Please take notes on this. I'm going to give you a few steps that have really helped me. So the first thing that you need to do is acknowledge the belief that's going off right now. And then once you've acknowledged the belief, you need to think about what the truth really is. And a lot of times the belief and the truth are just polar opposites. So if the belief is that I'll never have my ideal body, the truth is that I can have my ideal body, I will have my ideal body, and I will live a happy, healthy, vibrant life. So first, acknowledge the belief, then acknowledge the truth. And then once you've done that, the next step in this is to let it go. Let it go is to surrender. Surrender it. Acknowledge the fact that this is what's going on right now. Surrender it. Give it away. Just give it to the universe. Say, you know what? Take this away from me because I'm accepting me as I am. I'm accepting the fact that I don't currently have my ideal body, that I'm not at my current weight, and that's okay because I love me for who I am now. And I think that once you're able to really surrender it and just give up whatever it is that the belief is, that it really just takes its power away. It becomes powerless. And it shifts the focus and the power back on you. And so once you've done that, the next thing is, well, okay, what is my vision for my health? What is it that I really want? See, a lot of us are in resistance about what it is that we really want. We resist going to the gym. We resist prepping our meals. We resist this or that. And you can't gain anything in resistance. You can't live an abundant life in resistance. Because every time that you're resisting something, you're not honoring something else. And so we need to be able to first acknowledge what's going on, what the belief is, what the truth is, and then surrender it, honor it that this is just a part of us, I'm letting it go, making it powerless. And then once I've done that, what's my vision? What is it that I want to accomplish? So those are the best ways that I know how to shift from that limiting belief in the committee and really make solid, long-lasting changes.